All right. Andrew Couch.
That's it. Just like
That's
furniture.
it. Just like the furniture. The author. The name of this book is by far the greatest fucking name I've ever heard, brother. The Moron at the end of this book. How did you come up with this title?
Well, I'm a big fan of Grover. Did you grow up with Grover, Sesame Street?
Hell yeah, man!
Yeah,
Snuffleupagus, all the good,
right.
all the good characters.
Yeah, there was the monster at the end of this book when I was a kid. Brilliant. I mean, just a brilliant piece of like children's storytelling. I just always dug the title, and I mean, everybody. The point I'm trying to make in the book is kind of everybody's a moron.
You stole the title.
I stole the title, man. I just added in my own little flavor.
That's fantastic. It was so funny. So I'm sitting there at the house and I'm scrolling through, and I got a little heavy into some reading. I'm a big fan of UFOs, UAPs, things like that. So, I'm buying books left and right, reading conspiracy books and whatnot. And I'm scrolling along and I'm like, you know what? Let me start looking for new authors. And I'm scrolling through and I type in new authors on Amazon, and your book popped up, and I'm looking at it and I'm reading over everything on it. I'm like, holy crap, man, I can relate to this guy because I've been there, I mean, 40 something odd jobs throughout life, and you're trying to find your niche in the world. And it's like, what the hell am I doing? So give me a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, that's it, man. I'm from the South, born in Memphis, Tennessee. I've lived all over the country. Yeah, I have had about 40 entirely different occupations, from washing dishes in a catfish restaurant to working in the Empire State Building, running nonprofits, done environmental stuff, trying to do voiceover work now. I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I do, since I was young, I've thought about the idea of just being dead forever.
Yeah.
That's just, that's a big part of my daily thought process. So I don't know. I've never been bored. And I think my resume reflects that. I just try shit.
Man, I feel you on a lot of that, so so you're born and raised in the South. How did you get to New York? How did you get to the Empire State Building, man?
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy story. So I've got a bunch of siblings.
Okay.
They've spread out. My mom and dad didn't really, they had like a couple of kids every 10 years. They didn't really think this out, like my mom and dad ended up having 4 kids, and my mom and my stepdad had 2 more after me. So I had like siblings who are about a decade and some change older than me. And one of my sisters ended up in New York. And when I was like 20, I was like, hey, can I come up there and see if I can get a job, stay with you for a few weeks and see what happens? And I did. I just rolled the dice to try to figure out some new shit, and ended up moving up.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah. So I was kind of glancing over your book and looking at some of the things that were in your description. And I was like, oh my God, man. So I'm a big Elvis fan. So you sold trinkets at Graceland, huh, brother?
I did. So where are you? You're in Florida.
I'm based in Florida. Yeah. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've traveled half the United States myself. I've been a tattoo artist for over 20 something years. I've been everywhere from Key West, Florida, all the way up to the Meadowlands, out to California and back. When you say you've traveled too, I mean, that's where I can kind of relate, because my footsteps, my imprints are everywhere. And it was so funny because when I started in tattooing, I really pushed myself hard in the very beginning of my career, and I would go places and I got my name out there. I pushed my name out there. I got into magazines and things like that. And one of the funniest things was I was traveling and I was going up 95, and I stopped at a North Carolina Welcome Center restroom, and I'm in there and I'm standing at the urinal, man, and I'm just minding my own business and I'm just taking a leak, and all of a sudden I hear, hey, Philly, I'm like, what the hell? And it's just somebody, he's like, hey, man, I know you tattoo, right? And I'm like, holy shit, man. I can't piss without somebody knowing me, you know? But it was funny. But like listening to you, you know, what you had written on the back of your book and the traveling and where you've been, it's just, it's phenomenal, man. It's intriguing. So, you know, break out, like, give me a story, man. What is something that stands out the most for you, you know, that,
Well, you're asking about Graceland. I can tell you a little bit
hell
about
yeah.
that. I mean, that was you know, Memphis is obviously inseparable for Elvis now. You know, as people die, you know, as generations move on, I don't know how much meaning that's going to have for younger people. You know, are people going to give a shit in 20 years about Elvis? I don't know. But when I was a kid, he was still a big deal. And my high school wasn't terribly far from his old house from Graceland. It's real common for people to get a job there. So I I got a summer job, you know, just being the like uh, they were transitioning from like a guided tour to like people wearing headphones and shit. So there wasn't really a tour guide job. It was just go sell shit in the gift shops across the street. And I started doing that, and it was like it was bananas for me because it's people from all over the world. You're meeting people from the Netherlands, people from South Africa, people from all over, you know, the U.S. And here I'm this, you know, young Mississippi kid, just fascinated with all these accents and these weird people and beautiful women, and you know, just this wild scene. And then there's like Elvis week, you know, like the up and leading up to his death. I mean, it's like a pilgrimage. People from fucking everywhere just coming in by the thousands. And then like the night, there's a vigil the night he died. 24 hour. You're welcome to work for 24 hours. And as like a 16-year-old kid, I was like, fuck yeah, I'll stay here for 24 hours. Put me on the clock, baby. I'm ready to work. And you know, people just the later it gets, the crazier people become. Like the more weird fucking people come up. And this lady comes in, and she was hot, man. But you know, again, I'm 16 years old, and it's this like 35 plus year old woman comes in, and she's like immediately kind of flirting with me, and like, you know, she had this ponytail, or you know, and she was just really cute. But I was like, you know, intimidated by this older woman, and I just wanted to. I'm a people pleaser. I just really wanted to please this lady and helped her find a watch on a discount and this whole thing. And I noticed she said some shit that was kind of strange. I was like, oh, whatever. But you know, you're a teenager. You're like, I don't care how weird you are. Maybe there's a chance I'll see you after work. And so I was running break, like, you know, working. I'd go to various gift shops to let people go on break. And I was like, well, come to this gift shop in about an hour. I'll be there and I can sell you that watch at a discount because I know there's one that's got like a scratch on it. And I can, anyway, so she comes over and, you know, it's like getting later in the day. She's got her hair down and she just looked good and smelled good and was just totally turning me on. And she comes up to the counter and I sell her the watch and she's like, there's a whole bunch of people in line behind her ready to check out. They're like, come on the fuck on, man. We got to get it. And she's like, all of a sudden starts telling me all this weird shit about like Jesus. And like, it was like this quasi religious pseudo erotica thing that she's telling me. I was like, oh no, like just red flags going off. I was like, okay. Anyways, long story short, she ends up, she's like, well, let me get your contact. Let me call you. And this is pre cell phone. I live with my parents. I'm 16 years old, you know, and I'm thinking, okay, there's no way I can spend any time with this lady. She's too nuts. This, even for me, even for boner driven weirdo me, I got to say no. And so I was like, well, I'll get fired. I'll get fired if I give you my number, but ask my manager. They'll give it to you. Don't worry. I'll tell them it's cool. Thinking, no fucking way will my manager give this crazy woman my number. Uh, they, the only reason she never called me, there was a typo on the thing. I got a letter from her like many weeks later. I get a letter, 8x10 glossy fucking headshot of this lady with wearing the watch that I'd showed her, the same thing. And this crazy letter, I can't believe I lost it, man, but it was like part erotic Bible fan fiction weirdo shit saying like, you look like Jesus is the river that connected us. We've got this prophetic thing that's going to happen between us. I mean, it was wild as hell. And it was like a sort of an eye-opening moment. Like, oh, life is weird as
It
shit.
truly is, man.
And it's fine. Yeah, it's fine to be weird. Like this lady's weird. I can be weird. Just be yourself. It was a hip moment for me,
Dude,
but I dodged a
oh,
bullet because I'm just impulsive enough to have like gone to that lady's crazy hotel room and could have been in a cult. Who knows what would have happened to me?
holy shit. I mean, that there is like, 16, man, your hormones are in every direction, brother. And you're thinking with the wrong head, and it's just like, oh, good Lord, baby Jesus. you know?
Thank God, no babies, no Jesus.
Oh man.
Yeah, another version of me in a different universe has like a bunch of little kids all wearing the same
Oh
outfit.
shit.
Yeah,
Oh God, man.
yeah.
But that is crazy. It's, man, it's funny. I did a tattoo on a guy once. I was up in Pennsylvania. I was working in just outside of Philadelphia. It was up in like the suburby area. It was called Quakertown, Pennsylvania. And I was working for this gentleman up there, and this guy comes in. He's like, "Hey, Philly," he's like, "I got a gift for you. You did such a great job on my kid's tattoo, man. I want you to have this." And I'm like, "What the fuck is this dude giving me?" And he hands me this old black box, man. And he's like, "This is for you." And I'm looking at this box, like, you tell it's old, man. You could smell the must and the mildew on it. And I'm like, he's like, "Oh, open it up." I'm scared shitless to open this thing. I open it up, man. It is anything and everything to do with Elvis. Every newspaper clipping, every TV guide, every inquiring minds want to know. I mean, I have inquirers with Jackie O on it, and because it had an article Elvis in it. And the coolest thing I got, brings me back to, Graceland, is in that box was a photo mat. Do you remember photo mat, the drive-through photo?
Oh
So
yeah,
like the little
yeah.
huts, like Tommy Chung ran in the 70s show. You drive up and you drop off your film and you pick it up like a week later or whatnot. But in that was a photomat envelope. And in that envelope, man, was a 8.5 by 11 photo from the driveway of Graceland with the original negative and all that stuff. And it was like the coolest freaking thing with the receipt, man. And it was just like, it's still there. So that's, I have all this memorabilia, man. I need to get like some of them shadow boxes so I can spread this shit out so it doesn't dry rot and fade away, But yeah, man, that has got to be one of the highlights of your life right there. Just remembering that story, brother.
Well, the whole you're asking about the book. The reason that came about, man. My wife and I had just been on this like really long journey, and we were coming back, and I'd had like some weird health scares, and I was just in this kind of pensive space in my brain. And my mom was like, "Hey, I've got this box that belongs to you, and we've moved into this little house, and I don't need your shit at my house. Can you take it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." It's a box I had not seen. I think the newest thing in there was 20 years old. So I get it, and it's a box of photos. To your point, I mean, mostly photos. So I pull these things out, and it's shit that I've not seen in forever. From my childhood on. And there was a point in my life where I was a photographer, and I took photos of everything. I very much knew the photo mat and knew photo processing, was real into it. And anyway, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. It was the middle of the pandemic, and I reached out to this woman who is a travel writer, author, really, really smart, interesting woman that we met in Mexico City. And she'd started like a mentorship type of thing, like, trying to get authors, well, more appropriately, on their ass and actually writing rather than just thinking about it. I was like, so I don't know what to do. I got a book in me, but I don't know if it should come out or not. She's like, well, check this out. Just take that box that your mom gave you, randomly pick a photo out every morning, and pick a sense in your body and write about that thing that you're looking at, that photo. If it's whatever, just think of the scent. What did it smell like? What does it look like it might have smelled like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? So I started doing that with all these photos and realized I don't have much of a writer in my senses, but I do have a really good memory, and I really love telling stories. So I just started writing stories about the shit that I remembered from those photos. And that's what ended up eventually becoming the book. It was a box of photos that just was collecting dust and mold and weird shit at my
Man,
mom's
that's
house.
fantastic. I felt like really drawn to, your book here. And I was just like, because there's a lot that I can relate to that because I mean, my mom was a single mom most of my life. And so, I did certain things, but, I've always been a people pleaser, like you said. And I've always wanted to, adventure out, do things. And I've done that, man. I went all over the States, even at a young age. I mean, I got to a point to where like, I even did carnival work just to travel. So I was floating around the United States working at like state fairs, and I was doing like, let me guess your age and weight, man, and shit like this. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
cool. I made good money, but I got to see parts of the country I never thought I would see. And I did that for a while, and then I came back home, and I got, I was 18, and I just started focusing. But man, just like seeing some of the shit that I've seen in my life, I wouldn't even know how to begin to put that to paper and do what you did, with your stories. But, I didn't have many photos, just a lot of memories.
Yeah. Well, dude, you'd be surprised, man. Once you, if you sit down with an intention of like trying to remember a story, yeah, writing's a weird thing. I love it. I love to do it. It's part of like I mean, I don't drink much anymore. I rarely drink. I don't stay up past 9 o'clock. Just my whole, dude, if you would have told the 21-year-old version of me that that's what I would be like, I would have been like, so I don't kill myself before then? Like I just keep living in this. But anyway, so it's part of the thing that I like to do is just sit down and consider what happened. I mean, like an examined life. What is this experiment? What's this thing that I'm in, this body, this idea? I have all these notions and memories in my head that float around. So like when I sit down to write, it's like I'm telling myself a story. It's like a way of not forgetting. I got a buddy of mine who's a really good storyteller, doesn't consider himself a writer. I sent him a little clip on just a lavalier mic, that you can hook up to your phone. I was like, just tell people the stories that you have. Just tell them. Just like you're at a bar, or if you're with a friend or a family member, just say that story. And now with fucking technology, man, you can just like AI will give you a transcript of everything that you just said, and that's your story. You could just edit out the commas. So it's in you, man. You could have the story.
And then I look at it as like, just like you said, like who the hell would buy a book about a nobody, And it's
Not many people.
but well, look, man, let's try and get you some books sold here, man, because I will definitely post this, and I'm gonna put it on all my platforms, and I'll have links to everything for you, Andrew, and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I mean, it's I find it fantastic and stuff, but it was just like I'm looking over some of my notes I wrote down to talk to you about, and it's just like the short stories from a life lived well. You know what I mean? And I that's fantastic. I mean,
It's it's actually there. I'm gonna be that dude. There's a comma in there. It's like making fun of the idea of a
right.
life well lived. It's like a life
Lived.
well lived is about the best thing you can say about it. It's like it's just I just have
Right.
survived it. That's
You know, age range. I'm 49. I'll be 50 this year, at the end of the year, and stuff like that. And it's so funny because my wife is really down to earth, and she is 9.5 years younger than I am. And we have two small kids. My son John is he's 11 now, and he's coming into his own thing. My daughter is 9, and she is like going on 21. So but it's so funny because my wife knows a lot about my past, about all my travels, all my things like that, and where I've gone, what I've done, who I've been with. And I'm sure she can tell you some fucking stories about us. But I mean, I could tell you one later on in this episode, which is hilarious. But your wife, now that you've been together and things like that, and you're doing this book and you're coming up with these stories, and you're like, what? Some of this shit, like this whole Graceland thing and stuff. How's her thought process on some of this stuff with you?
oh, dude, it gets way worse than the Graceland story. So my wife and I have so far as I'm aware, there's no secret past. You know what I mean? Like we're super duper open with each other. We've been together for 20 years. Um, more than 20 years. So we've started dating. I met her on my 21st birthday, actually. Yeah, it's crazy. We spent 10 years, breaking up with each other and, all that sort of stuff. She will just tell you, oh yeah, he broke my heart a bunch. But yeah, we've been married for, a good long while. And the thing, I mean, for sure, before I published any of this, I talked to her about it, was real open with her. And, like, hey, if this is going to hurt you, I don't want that, And she's like, I don't give it. Everybody knows you're out of your fucking mind. So she was real supportive of it, and sees the humor in it, and that, like, I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm okay laughing at myself, and I want other people to be able to laugh at themselves. Like, it doesn't matter if you know who I am. Like, you could just take my name out of it. I mean, you need a character to hook onto a story, but it doesn't matter that it's me. The idea is that you could hopefully see yourself in any of these stories and kind of forgive yourself for your own moronical
Exactly.
behavior, like, oh, well, at least I'm not that,
I mean, I don't, I'd have to give my wife some serious, like, all right, babe, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to throw in some of these fucking stories, and she's going to be like, oh shit, what are you putting in there? She's like, but I'm pretty sure she would be cool. We've been through a lot, like I said, we have 2 kids. We've traveled a lot. We moved from Florida to Michigan, from Michigan to Florida, back to Michigan, back down to Florida. My wife's got a great job. Like I said, I've been tattooing for over 20 years. I own my own studio. The last year, we did better during COVID than we did last year. Last year was by far the freaking worst year in the industry. It was horrible. And now that 2024 is here, it's going to be a bumpy ride as well, because it's a political year, and I'm not a big politician. I'm not into all the politics and shit like that, but it's just one of those things. But throughout my years of tattooing, I've met and hooked up with a lot of craziness. And when I met, I'm having... When I met my wife, I was kind of seeing somebody, and the person that I seen was a stripper. So it's messed up. So, and it wasn't like a hardcore serious thing, but so I'm seeing this stripper chick, and then I'm seeing my future wife also, and we're talking. And at the time I was running a bar. I kind of owned a bar, and I was buying it from a gentleman who ended up screwing me over on the purchase of the bar. So I would meet her. She would come in, hang out at my bar and everything like that. And we're just hanging out and we're drinking. We ended up hooking up. So we're hanging out one night in my house, and in my apartment, and like it's like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm dead asleep, and then my phone rings, and I answer my phone, and it's the stripper. She's like, hey, I'm in the parking lot, I'm coming in. I'm like, oh shit. So I roll over, I'm shaking my future wife, hey, you need to get up and leave. So it's some crazy shit like that. But I've got stories like that, man, and it's just like, do I put these stories out there in a book?
I mean, you just did, like telling it on the podcast. You're getting plenty of practice to see where your limits of tolerance are with your wife.
She's really good, man. She's down to earth. She's funny. She's got some crazy shit stories that she's gone through in life and stuff like that. But I mean, we've all been there. Now, you, my friend, you did some traveling. You walked from Mexico desert to the Sierra in California.
Yeah, there's a trail, like the Appalachian Trail. There's a Continental Divide Trail, and then there's the Pacific Crest Trail. So the PCT, as they call it, goes from Mexico to Canada. Yeah. So the intention was to walk the whole thing. I got it's all in the book. Like my father died. My girlfriend and I, who's the woman is now my wife, we split up for the first time. She moved out, and then I was robbed, all in the same like little short window of time. So I was like, okay, I don't have all of my shit. Everything that I care about is kind of out, so I could just sort of do whatever. So I went on a walk, man. I didn't have much to
You pulled the Forrest
store.
Gump, brother. You're
Everything
like,
was already
I'm
gone.
just going to run. you
Yeah.
know?
When I was
Yeah,
hungry, I
right.
ate. When I was tired, I
Jesus
slept. Yeah,
Christ,
yeah.
man.
It was that, and I had never, I'd hiked and I'd camped, but I'd never combined the two until my first night on the trail. And it was like along the Mexican border, about, outside of this little town called Campo, California, and or Campo, Mexico, rather. And then anyway, yeah, I just started walking from there, and you meet so many people, and it hit me to the idea that like the relationships you can form when you're traveling with people are like they're instant. They're like really, really deep, but they're very brief. You just kind of like you meet this person and you have a common sort of like physical goal that you're aiming toward, and you can really dial in with people. And it hooked me on that notion where I just wanted to travel and meet other people in that experience. Cause like, I don't know about you, man, but I mean, you've got kids, you have a whole different thing happening, but I suffer from like bouts of pointlessness. I get real anxious about the existential, meaninglessness of human existence. But having a literal point A to point B journey to like connect the dots on really helps my brain have a sense of literal purpose. So that, walking from Mexico to Canada, even if I don't make it all the way, just having something to aim towards. I've done that type of thing a whole bunch in my life. That was the first time I shot for
I
it. I ended up buying a van and driving the rest. I made it to Canada. I just didn't walk the whole way.
I get like that myself. I don't know if it's just like an anxiety, but my mindset to things is some nights I'll just lay there and I can't sleep whatsoever. And, my wife will be like, you okay? And I'm like, well, my mind's going in 50 million fucking directions at one moment. I'm worried about this or that and that and this. And okay, how am I going to take care of this? And like, okay. And then it was just like, I just literally got back from Michigan. I did my buddy owns a tattoo shop up in Michigan. So I went up there, for 7 days, and I left this beautiful sunny state of Florida, which was cold when I left, to the snowy state of Michigan. And I get there, man, and it's like negative fucking 12 with the wind chill factor, and it's freezing, man. It's cold. But I had a bunch of appointments. I did a bunch of appointments and stuff like that. And I'm driving back, and I'm just, the weather's beautiful, man. I'm cruising. And then as the sun's going down, I'm pondering my coming week. Okay. I'm getting back into the studio. I don't have anything lined up for podcast. What the hell am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I've got to get something done. And then it's just like, I always have to have a plan. I always have to have something set that I know is going to happen. And when I don't, I get so anxious and worried about, oh my God, am I going to fail? And it's frustrating. It truly is. You had mentioned earlier about some health scares and stuff for yourself. I mean, September of 21, man. I found a mass in my chest, and I was, a lot of people don't know, but yeah, men can get breast cancer. And it's a big thing. So I ended up having surgery, and they ended up taking out a softball sized mass out of my chest. Where it came from, I don't know. It came back benign, no cancer. Fantastic. I recently found out that it's starting to come back again. Now it's kind of scary in some sense, because my mom, a little over a year ago, just had a double mastectomy done. And, my mom's a hardcore old school bartending woman, who could cuss worse than any sailor ever could. I mean, she's a tough son of a bitch, my mom, and she'll tell you, I'll kick your fucking ass, but she's watched herself over the years. She's become more spiritual, and she has focused more and kind of cut her language down a little bit. But if you get her going, she'll bust them out, But she went through that, and the doctors came back. They told her it's cancerous. And my mom was straight up, you know what? I'm not doing any of that radiation bullshit. I don't want chemo. Just cut them the fuck off, and we'll go from there. And that's what she did, So things like that, being scared by stuff like that, I got really nervous and worried, because like, I'm a man, I don't go to the doctor. I have a hard time taking Tylenol. I don't smoke pot. I don't do pills. I drink beer I used to smoke cigarettes. Now I do a light nicotine vape. I don't do anything else. But I drink beer occasionally, not as much anymore. But I mean, if you would have saw me 2 years ago, man, I could put a freaking 18 pack away in a blink of an eye, but it's just now that I'm getting older, I got to focus more on my kids and where I'm going in life.
They talk about that. There's like your lifespan, however long you're going to live. That to me is less meaningful. And without kids, I think less about that sort of thing than I do just about being healthy, like feeling all right in my body. Because I don't know about your family, man, but mine, my people are actually from a combination of Michigan and Illinois. And there's not a lot of, certainly on my father's side, not a lot of longevity. And the folks that do end up living long they aren't particularly healthy. And I don't want to be a burden on my wife. I don't want her to have to like take care of a derelict, fucked up version of me.
Now, what's the age difference between you and your wife? You guys similar in age, close to age, same age?
Same. Yeah, we're both like basically almost 45, okay. 44. Yeah.
God, to be 44 again, man. No. Just a few.
Believe me,
just a few
I take
years,
care of
man.
an 83-year-old guy.
But yeah, no, I agree. And it's, having kids now, and I'm sure you feel that. How many kids do you have? Oh, you don't have any kids? Oh my God, man. The luckiness. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No. Well, no, I've always said to my wife, like, and she doesn't repeat this back, but I always say, like, we can either be married or have children,
right.
But not both. I'd rather be married to her. Yeah. I really like her as a pal. She's the only roommate I've ever liked. We got a good thing going. We've got a dog that we really like hanging out with, and that's. I love kids. I think I'm a decent uncle. I quite enjoy being an uncle. She's aunt of the friggin' year. She's great. But yeah, being a parent has never really appealed to me, man. I don't know. I just I'm certain if I had a child, I'd do a good job or do my best. But I'm real glad I didn't do it. No offense to people who got them. Glad y'all did it, man. People got to put good people in the gene pool. But
kids are. Yeah. Hilarious, man. I mean, I love being a dad. I'm an early riser. My wife gets up early for work. I could set my own schedule, come and go as I please, whatnot. I get up in the morning with her. Some mornings I'll get up before, make her a cup of coffee, or she'll make me a cup of coffee and wake me up. But the night before, I get in the kitchen after the kids go to bed, and I get all the lunch bags out. I get my wife's lunch bag out. I get my son's, my daughter's. I lay out all the bread. Okay, he likes mustard. He doesn't like mayonnaise. She likes mayonnaise. I need cheese on this one. And I get all their lunches together, and I pack them, put them in the fridge, get them prepped and ready for the next day. But do I pack my own lunch? Nah. I'll sit at the shop all damn day, like stomach's gurgling. I should have made a lunch, but it's been years, and I don't do things like that. My mindset is more focused, making sure that my wife and kids are taken care of. I got to make sure that they have this and that. And, my mom growing up was, we weren't rich. We didn't have that. Mom had assistance through the state, the welfare program back in the day, and, she'd get the food stamps and things like that. But I want to make sure in my life that I never have to get back to that point again with my kids. I don't want to have my kids feeling like, they're not as good as the other kids in school and shit like that, So if I have to work a little bit harder to get that extra money to get them this or that, I will work my ass off to get to that point to help them to get what they need to have to make them feel comfortable around their friends. Because the way life is right now, and I'm sure you see this yourself, it's in some, I hate saying it, but it's just like, young kids want to keep up with the Joneses more than the parents do. You know what I mean? I got to make sure that, he has the good sneakers and I'll wear the Bobos, that's what we used to call them, Bobo sneakers, things like that.
Did you feel like that growing up, that you were lesser than other kids? Did you have that sense in your body?
There was a point, but then, I also grew up, in a tough neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood where It was the majority of my school was black. And my high school, I was one of maybe 20 white kids in high school. The rest were a mix between Asian, African American, Spanish, and things like that. We had fucking metal detectors. It was so funny. We had these two cops that worked the front door. We called them Salt and Pepper. One was black, one was white. So, but like, you'd be going into school, like Salt and Pepper's on the house, and they're pushing you through the metal detector. But yeah, man, I mean, it was, if I wanted something, my mom would work hard for it. But, being a bartender too, it was funny because my mom would get the hookup on certain shit, because you would get somebody that would come into a bar and it was always like, hey man, I need $20. I got this DVD player. It's brand new in the box. Here's 10, So, but, shit like that. But I mean, my mom did good for us, and, she kept us apart, but like, she wouldn't go out and buy me $100 pair of sneakers like some of these other kids' parents would, but if I worked my ass off, which I did, because I always had a job, man. If it wasn't bagging groceries, shoveling snow, cutting grass, or, I mean, I've done some of the craziest shit. I even used to go walking around with a paintbrush and paint everybody's address on the curb like they used to do back in the day, for $1 a house. And I did that, but I would make money to get a portion of it paid, and then whatever was left over, mom would be like, all right, I can cover that, no problem. But it's just like, nothing was actually handed to me. There was no silver spoon or, platter that it came on. If you want it, you had to work fucking hard for it.
See, man, I feel so lucky. My dad grew up in Michigan. He was one of like 13 children who survived infancy. They were dirt poor. I mean, just dirt poor. And my dad, it felt the same as you do about your kids. He was like, I do not want my kids to go through the shit that I went through. I'm just not having it, and he and my mom split up, but I feel so lucky that I never needed anything. Like I always had, I was just well provided for. I don't know if it was a silver spoon, but it was pretty goddamn nice spoon, and I learned from my mom and from him, just hearing their stories, to be aware of how easy I had it, and how difficult it was for other kids. I, I now being an adult and I just haven't been in the working, I don't have money anymore. I don't have my parents' money to rely on. But as a kid, I certainly never needed anything. But they were real. At the same time, my dad didn't want us to not be able to handle it ourselves. And, like I didn't go to college on his dime. I was like, look, man, I just kind of want to do it. Whatever I'm going to figure out on my own. I mean, I appreciate all the help, but I got to figure this out on my own. Because it's, he provided for everything up until that point. And I feel your story, man, because it's I can see why you want to give your kids a very different life. And my dad did this exact
like you said,
same thing.
My mom was one of 8 children. Okay, she has 2 brothers and I believe 5 sisters. And they grew up in a small, tiny row home. I mean, you imagine 8 kids, crammed in a 3-bedroom small house with 1 bathroom. It's crazy. But my grandfather, he was a railroader. He worked his ass off. His father was a railroader for the Pennsylvania Railroad. I mean, and that's what they did. And it's just crazy. But I was young when my grandfather passed away, my mom's dad. But I mean, he was a stubborn, old, drunk son of a bitch. And that's who he was. He was violent. Him and my grandmother, they split up, and, he was mean at some points, and my mom hated him, but she loved him because it was her dad. He still provided and did things, but I don't ever want to get to a point to where like my kids have to worry about anything like that. Like I always, as much as, we go through things in life, I just want to make sure that they understand, like, I'm going to shield you from as much as I possibly can to protect you and make sure that you keep going the straight path that you need to get to succeed on your own, because I'm not always going to be there. So you're going to have to step up a little bit and work a little bit harder to get to where you need to go. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if I watch a lot of shit online. I look at a lot of reels and stuff, and today's society, it scares the living shit out of me, man. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, the shit that I see is it's excuse my French, fucking mind blowing. The crap that, everything that's going on. And it's just like kids today, man, they don't understand. Like you and I are very close in age. So, I could say we survived the drinking out of the garden hose and riding our bikes at night and riding 20 miles away and then making sure we were home underneath that light outside the house when it got dark. Kids today, man, no, the kids aren't allowed to go anywhere by themselves.
Yeah, we had a lot of freedom, man. We had a lot of and you had to like you had to fix shit as a kid. Like, like if your bike broke, you couldn't just be like, "Hey, I need a new bike." Like you had to figure it out and fix your shit. And there's something about that, like, they say dirt under the fingernails is good for your microbiome, helps you be healthier and stronger and resist. That can be a metaphor for everything else. I mean, like, adversity and needing to figure out your own problems is a tremendous growth potential. And the problems that you may be sorting out online are very different than the ones that you have to sort out when you're using your hands and you're engaging with the world physically. It's a whole other ball of wax, man. And I can't imagine what it'd be like to have children to worry about. I think about my nephews and nieces. Unfortunately, man, my brothers and sisters, they brought their kids outside. They made sure they knew how to be out there. And
tend to do that with mine, but they're getting to an age now where it's like, they're starting to focus a little bit more on their independence, being by themselves, and kind of shadowing away from mom and dad. But yet when they do need something that's of value, that's when they decide, hey, can I get this? No, you can't. Well, but I don't want to hear it. I tell my kid all the time, he's like, Dad, is there anything that I can do around the house to make a few bucks? I'm like, yeah, man, there's a bunch of piles of dog shit in the backyard. You want to pick them up? I'll pay you $1 a pile. He's like, I'm not picking up no dog shit. I'm like, dude, there's like 20 piles of dog shit back there. Get them before the rain washes it away. It's $20. I mean, I used to have to do that and I didn't get paid. Shit, man. Back when I was a kid, I think my allowance was like maybe $5, at the end of the week. And I think I was 13. At $5 then, man, that shit went fucking far, man. It went far. It's crazy.
I mean, my first job, I lied to get it. I wasn't old enough. My sister was working as a waitress at this catfish restaurant, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'll do whatever. I'll wash dishes. Come on." And so I started going in there and washing dishes, and like to get, after a weekend of work, to have $75. As a 13-year-old,
what are you making, like $2.50, $3 under the table?
Yeah, I think it was maybe $3.25, or like the minimum wage was $3 or $4 an hour. It's terrible, But you work a weekend and you got some dough and you just feel so flush, man. There's like, it just was a tremendous feeling as a little kid. And I remember I'm like working with adults, women, like there were grown women and grown men in there who really needed their money, right? And I would go to, like, this is when arcades were still a thing. I'd have a 20, a fresh fucking 20, slide that thing into the coin maker, and then get $20 worth of quarters and blow $20 playing like Ninja Turtles or whatever, I mean, it was that sort of thing. Like, and I still remember the perspective and that feeling of like, boy, Miss Dolores, she would never turn $20 into quarters. If she did, it'd be at a laundromat, like washing bedding for her kids. She would never just waste $20 just staring at a screen. Like it was basically, to me, I had a different perspective on money. And I still think about, like, I live in California. Everything is expensive as shit. I mean, a gallon of gas is just, almost $5. So I think about the cost of things, like relative to, how many cars would I have to wash to have this much money? How much shit job, how many dishes, how many shifts would I have to work to afford this thing? And it's like, I can't undo that imprint of what money's worth, like trading time for cash. That never goes away.
It's so funny too. Even arcades today, man, aren't like the arcades that you and I had when we were kids. Now, they're part of like these big like little franchises and stuff like that. You know, you got like Dave and Buster's, and you have these smaller. You might come across the mom and pop arcade, you know, old school pinball type style, but the only way you find them are in like some rundown bowling alley or whatnot. But like we have a place not far from our house here that we take the kids to, and they got, you know, the shuffleboard tables, you know, the air hockey and things like that, and but all these games that they have now, you have to literally go in, see like a counter person, fill out a form, get a damn card, a plastic card, almost like, you know, a little sliding card that they can scan, and now everything is put on that. You give them the $20 and you get so many credits, and then you go and play your games and whatnot. It's not like the old day when you're walking up to a guy with a change dispenser on his hip, you know, hey man, let me get 4 quarters. Yes, you know, smoking a cigarette. We had the best game place in Philadelphia when I was growing up. It was called Champions Arcade, and it was up off the Roosevelt Boulevard, Roosevelt Mall, and that's where everybody went. If you were a metalhead, man, you had a leather jacket, and that's like where all the teenagers hung out and smoked their cigarettes away from the parents. And then across the street was an Arnold's old school drive-in, and then across from that was the Orleans 8, which was a movie theater. So you had everything. And for me to go there as a kid, like I saved my money for like 2 or 3 weeks of my allowance, and I had to take 2 buses. You know, kids don't understand that shit today. They're like, what's a bus? I'm like, yeah. So you pay 50 cents extra on your regular fee to get a transfer paper. And they're like, a transfer paper? What's that? I was like, that transfer piece of paper is your ticket onto the next bus. So you have to get off in the cold or the rain, wait, hang out for the next bus to come, and then jump on that and get to where you got to go. And we get there, man, and we would spend all night and still had to be home by 10 o'clock at night. That was the latest, you know? And mom and dad would not come and pick you up, even though like for them to drive there would only take 20 minutes, and it took you over an hour on buses to get there, you know. But you know, it's like kids today, man, they have the golden fucking spoons, man. They have the silver platters and all that shit today.
But you know what's funny though is your parents thought the same thing about you when you were coming up. They're like, "Oh man, all they got to do is wait for a," you know, like. I live with and take care of and work for a gentleman who's in his 80s, and you know, he was born in 1940, and his perspective on the world and what he's seen happen. And this dude had a wild life, man. I mean, he's done all kinds of amazing shit in his life. Traveled the world, had really great success commercially making music. But you know, his childhood and mine, you know, there were a lot of elements that are the same as any child. You know, that playfulness, that weird curiosity, the imagination. But like the reality of how he would make it through the day versus me, you know, eating cereal and watching cartoons and shit, could not be more different. And like, you know, and his parents thought he had it really easy because they were immigrants, you know, who came to this country and had to scrape for everything. It's like, so I think that's just a perennial thing. Parents look at their kids like, you fucking little, you know, you got it so easy. So I can only imagine what your kids are going to be saying someday to their kids, like, oh, the
cereal boxes
hovercraft
were
takes you
our
every.
iPads, brother. You know, they were our cell phones, man. You know, just Captain Crunch and Life cereal, you know, and just sitting there reading. I tell my kids that. They're like, what do you mean you used to dig to the bottom of the cereal for a prize? I was like, man, Captain Crunch used to give you the coolest fucking little things in there. You would get this. It was a little submarine that ran on baking powder, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you put the baking powder in, man, and it would and it float, and they're like, no, I'm like, yeah, not this lead shit you get today. Yeah, no, that's what gets me, man. Is like there's so much shit out there that we had as a kid, and now it's like, oh, you can't have that. You know, that's bad for you. I'm like, shit, man. You're talking to kids that grew up in a station wagon who sat in the back, looked and flipped off people from the rear window with no seatbelts. You know. Exactly, man. Doing 70 on the highway, you know. But you got to admit, though, our cars were American steel, not this, you know, plastic shit that they're, you know, making today. But it's crazy. But yeah, man. So how long have you been in California now?
So we moved out here in 2015. We were living in New Orleans for about 5 years, and then we moved. Yeah, man, Louisiana's cool. Um, but we did like a in 2014. My wife and I went to St. Augustine, hopped on my bike, and rode to New Orleans and picked her up, and then we biked from New Orleans to San Diego, and we were looking for a new place to live because we wanted to leave New Orleans. We just kept on looking and looking, and when we got out here, we were like, we didn't want to go back home yet, so we rented a car and drove from San Diego up to Mendocino County, which is like kind of far northern California. And on the way, we stopped at this little town outside of San Francisco, and we're like, this is where we want to move. So it's called Petaluma, California, which is like Sonoma County, like kind of wine country. And oh, nice.
She grew up in Palmdale. Not far from LA, outside, I think, not too far. But so her dad works for GM. He grew up in Ohio, and my father-in-law. So when he graduated high school, he got his diploma, literally jumped in his car and left Ohio, went right to California, and he got a job pretty much right away working for GM. He's been with GM now, I think, like 47 years or some shit like that. But yeah, they lived out there, and my wife has got so many fucking stories. She's like, I'll never go back there. She's like, fuck that place, and she hates it, And then her sister moved out of that area and moved over to Arizona. So, they live out there and stuff like that. I've been to San Francisco a couple of times, been out that way, San Diego and things like that. And, I actually met a chick online one time, man, and would fly out to see her and hang out and just pretty much just fuck all weekend and then fly back home. She would fly out to Philly and shit like that. It was crazy, man. But yeah, dude. And it was so funny you mentioned New Orleans, man. So I was 18 when I got my first trip to New Orleans, man. It was the greatest fucking trip of my life. And I went with my mom, okay? And it was so funny. My mom was dating this guy, and we went down there, and we were hanging out. We met up with some friends down there, and I had a special shirt made, man. And I had my mom and her ex had a business on the boardwalk in Wildwood, New Jersey, which is just a seasonal joint. And they had these T-shirt shops, and they would make anything you want. So I had a fucking shirt made, man, and big white letters on the front of this black shirt said, "Show me your tits." And I took that to New Orleans, man. Dude, I got so many fucking beads from people. It was great, man. I had a blast, dude. And my first trip there was a week prior to Mardi Gras. So it was hectic and busy, but not as busy. It was crazy, man. Great town, great city, great history, man. I love shit like that. My wife and I want to go out there just to do like some ghost tours and history and shit like that.
Yeah, man. The first time I went down, I would go with my family 'cause I grew up, it's not that far. Um, but I started going as a teenager. I got hired as a photographer, and I'd go down there by myself. I would drive from Memphis to New Orleans as a teenager to take photos of like marathons and graduations and all kinds of random shit, weddings, parties. And once I kind of got over like the wildness of Bourbon Street and the French Quarter, I started to realize how hip the rest of the city was and how much other stuff was going on other than just being like blind drunk, and I mean the food, the culture, the stories, the river. I mean, I would ride my bike when I ended up living there. I'd ride out to Mississippi, to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, and it was just amazing, man. Just within like 15 minutes of leaving my house, I could see alligators. You'd be like riding over a thing, and then it's like, oh, there's alligators in this little swamp, and just beautiful. I mean,
when I got there, I mean, I was blown away, and I've driven through the state before as well, but I mean, it was something I'd never seen, and it was such a culture shock for me just to see how crazy and wild things are in different areas, and then running into people we knew that we did not know they were there, and it was just, and they were in the same fucking hotel we were in, and it was just funny, and we're walking by, I'm like, get the fuck out of here, you're here, and they're like, oh my god, it's just, I think that I got so hammered there at 18, man, with my mom. We were on Bourbon Street, and it was a place called the Hurricane. and walked in, and it looked like a Baskin Robbin, man. There was like 31 different flavors of those alcoholic slushies, dude. I'm slamming these fucking things down, and the next, my mom's like, dude, you better watch yourself. I'm like, I'm fine. Boom, I hit the floor. I was done, bro. That was it, man. But yeah, New Orleans. I am. I live in Central Florida. I am just in between Orlando and Daytona.
Okay. I spent a lot of time in Florida, man. I love Florida. I used to go to this place, the Itchitutney Springs. Is that north of you, I think? Yeah, beautiful, man. Like, I mean, deep, crystal clear water. Um, yeah, no, I really like Florida, man. I got a pal who lives in the Bay, in Tampa, St. Pete. It's just a cool state, man. I know people talk shit about Florida all the time with the Florida man thing, but
Gulf
that's
water
it.
is the best. Those beaches over there, when you get out there, you can walk. I'm
Oh,
telling you, man, just
white
walking
sandy
like
beaches.
8 feet out or 10, whatever, you could still see your toes in the water, man, when you're out there. And it's just so crystal clear. But I mean, it's gorgeous. Have you ever been to the Keys?
Totally.
Key,
I haven't been to the Keys.
uh,
No, I'd really like to.
yeah, Key West was awesome, man. That was a good time. Had a lot of fun down there. That's a culture shock too, man. It's like a It's, you got Duval Street, which is like their main strip, and everything's on that strip. I mean, you got Hard Rock Cafe, you got the world's smallest bar, which is you can stand two people in the front of it. That's it. Just a little tiny slot in a wall, man. It's the world's, and you got the old Sloppy Joes and stuff, and you can actually go on the sloppy. Yeah, man. You could actually go to sloppyjoes.com and actually check out their live webcam. They have a live webcam that shines down on the street, man. See how the weather is and shit like that. The southernmost point. And on a good, clear, calm night, man, you can see all the lights from Havana, and it's badass. And then there's a really cool thing you can do. They do a tour over the Dry Tortugas, which is the state fort that they have out there, and you can take it by ferry boat or waterplane, man, and just get out there and you can go snorkeling around it, man. It's badass, man. It's super super cool, man. Yeah. But the Keys, yeah, Keys is nice, man. There's so much shit. I know. They just not. I don't know how many years ago, but I know. Not too far back, the Navy sunk an old ship out there to make a artificial reef. You know what I mean? So you can go scuba diving and check out shit like that too, man. There's a lot of cool shit down there, man. A lot of neat history. Yeah, man. But what's your goals for another book, my friend? You got more stories, I'm sure, more pictures you're digging out, and
Yeah. Well, I've got some. I've been trying to help other people publish some books. I still write every day. I still try to make that practice part of my life. I've got a book that I've been working on about our journey that we took a couple years ago. I ended up writing too much. I mean, there's multiple books in there. I got to figure something out to do with that. But yeah, I don't really have a plan for next book. I didn't necessarily have a plan for the one that I published. And it's done okay. I mean, look, I talk shit about not selling any books. I've sold some books, and I'm thrilled with every last sale of a book. But I didn't write it thinking about commercial book success. I just wanted to write something that like I could feel good about and that other people could enjoy. I had a good time making the audiobook. I learned a lot doing it, and now I'm more inspired to kind of help other writers get their stuff out there, because I know how daunting it can be to just feel like
I've
no
sat
one
there
gives a
once or
shit about
twice,
what you're
man, in
doing.
front of a keyboard, and I was like, a day in a life, and I start going, and I'm like, fuck this. You I'm like, I don't know, how do I keep going, but it's just like, it's one of those things.
Yeah. So that's kind of no. That's where it is. Yeah, because I mean, you can get a transcription. Like, I mean, our conversation today, I'm sure this Riverside will give you a transcript of everything that you and I said. So you could, if this is episode 30 for you, so you could go back and you could make a little book out of your excerpts from your conversation with people, just feed it
Yeah,
into an
this
AI
this
or
this
whatever, and get your
program that they
transcript.
have, man, has been fantastic. It's been a lifesaver for me. Being able to do the video calls and stuff like that. I do. would love to prefer to do more face to face because like I there's just something about being face to face when you're talking to somebody, and it's just like I started realizing like I'm not interviewing you, I'm just hanging out talking with you. I just want to talk bullshit, and that's why I came up with the title Everyday BS. It's just like, let's talk everyday shit, man. Like, how's your life going? And, did you burn yourself drinking your coffee this morning? You know what I mean? Shit like that. I fucked around yesterday. I did this, did that. I have an artist here, Ladina, who works with me, and I got tired of doing solo talking to myself. I'm sitting here in the shop. It's dead fucking quiet. And I'm just sitting here with a microphone. I'm like, blah, 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 and I can't do that. I got to have somebody, like you said, I got to see something. I got to be with somebody. I got to talk to somebody. But, and I just started thinking to myself, and I'm like, I'm not interviewing. I'm just hanging out, talking with people. And, your book caught my eye, caught my interest. I like the fact that, you have these stories of your life and shit that you went through. And I'm like, I can relate because I've been there. I've got stories like that and things. And I just, there's something about the cover of your book and the name. It's just fucking amazing, man. The man at the end of this, moron at the end of this book, and it's just like a piece of toast. Is that what it is? A piece of toast on the cover? I just fucking love that, man.
Yeah, it's cosmically fucked up toast. Yeah, yeah, cosmically burnt toast. Well, I'd be happy to send you a free copy of the audiobook if I know like it's tough to sit down and read. Not everybody's got a lot of time for that, but I never want somebody not being able to afford it. If anybody wants a copy of the book and they don't have the cash, I'll send them a free ebook.
Well, I want to get a hard copy, an autograph book, brother. So I'm going to be talking to you. So when this is done, we're going to shoot the shit and stuff. But I like I said, I've been picking up books and stuff like that, and I'm a big World War II buff as well. Like, I love anything that's got to do with World War II history, and I just picked up this conspiracy book on World War II, so I want to be reading that. But right now, I'm finishing up a book that I picked up. I ordered online, and the guy autographed it for me. But it's The Black Vault. It's all about UFOs, Project Blue Book, weird shit like that. I'm all about that stuff, man. So it's pretty wild. But your book, definitely, man. It's awesome. I love it. Just you know, I gotta ask, what kind of grease powered vehicles were you building, man? Like, come on.
Well, it's a weird story. So the guy Rudolf Diesel, the guy who created the diesel engine, originally the thing that he made it work the first time he showed it at the World's Fair, it was running on vegetable oil. But the trouble with vegetable oil is it in cold weather it gels up and all the fats congeal and it won't run through the injectors of a diesel engine. Certainly not now. I mean, they're so highly compressed. But so some guys figured out, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 years ago, that if you heat up the oil, it'll obviously, it breaks down the viscosity and it can pass through the injectors no problem. So these guys started building these kits that you would start up your vehicle on diesel, and as it heated up, they built this whole separate fuel system with a heat exchange in it that borrowed heat from the radiator. So like all the heat in the tank and the lines, all the diesel, or all the grease rather, would break down and it would become, it would flow like diesel fuel. And so you'd flip a switch, stop burning diesel and start burning grease. So I pitched to those guys on, hey, look, I'd like to be an official installer of your product. And so I started a company called Deep Fried Rides. And I would get people from all over the country who would show up and we'd have their kit in their car. And over a weekend, I'd outfit their car with this auxiliary diesel system. And I would cook a catfish dinner in the shop and filter off all the grease, filter out all the like fry batter and salt and shit and pour it into their tank. Yeah, pour that into their tank. And that would be their first tank of fuel would be, part of what they'd just eaten. But yeah, so you're driving around on waste cooking oil. And when you get where you're going, you switch back to diesel, purge the line so you don't have cold grease sitting
so the waste oil, what would you go around to like local restaurants and like, hey man, you got any gallons of shit that you're not using anymore?
Yeah. So it was a different time, and it was before. So at that time, like oil was really like petroleum was like extremely expensive, like $100 a barrel. We were in more at war in Iraq. You know, it was like, it was a weird time. And people with restaurants, they would sometimes they had to pay to have their grease taken away. It just wasn't valuable. It wasn't a commodity. And the only people really using it were like, they'd put it in animal feed. It was just a waste, a junk product. So part of what I did is I went around to all the restaurants in my area that I could get to that would allow me. And I got contracts like, hey, I'll pick up your grease for the next X number of years for free. Won't charge you. I'll do it for free. It's going to a good cause. So I got all these contracts. And when I ended up selling my business, I ended up selling those contracts because by the time I was done, companies were buying the grease because they'd realized the value, this a whole other value of it. They were making biodiesel and different products out of it. But yeah, I had a bunch of free grease. So, and I would sell it to customers for half the price of diesel. Whatever, I would index diesel, whatever it was that day, I would sell the grease for half that. So it was a good business model for the time, but times had changed, and it's a lot, man. I mean, to suddenly like be responsible for your fuel is something not everybody is meant to do. I definitely talked more people out of doing the grease thing.
Holy shit, man. That's pretty wild. I know there was a guy who did some shit with like, he built some type of, what was it? Like some type of car that ran on water, salt water, or some shit like that. Yeah, man. So I don't know, man. But yeah, brother. So moronbook.com. People want to check you out. They can find you on moronbook.com. And your book is available on Amazon. And you said it's you can do audio, hard copy, paperback, all that good stuff. So yeah.
Yep, ebook, hardcover, paperback. Yep. And like you, man, I've also got I got a podcast as well. I was actually doing two. Yeah, I do a storytelling one. So if you ever write one, we'll publish one of your stories called "Raised by Whoops," and that's just strictly storytelling. And the other is the sort of conversational show, sort of like yours, where I'm just looking for interesting people to chat with. It's called Monkey Tooth Podcast. And
awesome,
they're
man. Yeah, I'll get all the links from you, man, and have all that shit posted and everything for you, Andrew. Dude, it was a pleasure, man. Thanks for hanging out and bullshitting with me, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad we got through those little technical difficulties, man, and we're able to rock and roll, brother. But hey, it is what it is, right? Awesome. Hang tight, bud.